The Calamity mod contains a plethora of different biomes, bosses, and enemies, so naturally weapons and armor would also come in all sorts of different colors. But I'm sure you've read the title and you've likely seen the first part of this series, so let's start right from where we left off. Upon opening the Wolf's treasure bag after we just barely defeated it, we didn't really obtain anything of use. Aside from one thing. The demon heart is as purple as a plum, there's no mistaking it, but at the same time it doesn't really fall under any category of items in particular, so what are we to do with it? I'll admit I was conflicted over this decision for a short moment, but after some thinking, everything became clear, and I moved forward with my possibly controversial decision to ultimately consume the demon heart and gain an extra accessory slot. My rationale, well, to be bluntly honest, I wanted a slightly easier challenge, but I think the extra accessory slot will make our loadout possibilities a touch more interesting. Say what you want, sure, but I bet you don't have the balls to take on this challenge yourself. Moving on, I did what any early hard modder in Calamity would do and dived right back into the elevator to mine some cobalt and palladium. Neither of which are red or green, so all I can really make of them are tools. Whilst underground, of course, I had a look through recipe browser, bringing up the recipes for Souls of Night, Souls of Light, all the different essences, Ichor, Cursed Flames, you name it. The more items I'd sift through, the more my hope would dwindle, like a flickering candle on the verge of fading to darkness. But one small idea I had reignited that spark within me. Aside from some smaller accessory upgrades, there wasn't a single usable weapon obtainable pre-mech. Aside from one small thing that I'd became well acquainted with as of recent, something I'd used in my past runs on this channel, and the weapon that saved the entire run that I'd mentioned previously. If you haven't already guessed, it's the Cursed Dagger, ironically only obtainable in a corruption world while we fought and struggled through the Wall of Flesh on our Crimson one. So alas, we embark on our quest to re-slay the Wall of Flesh on a fresh new corruption world. But not before picking up some small incremental upgrades on the main world. Cursed arrows are a beautiful bright green, but require a hard mode corruption world to obtain. Except I just completely lied to you. If you obtain a hive mind treasure bag, through whatever means, and open it on any hard mode world, ta-da, there's your cursed flames. Or you could just buy them from the alchemist NPC, but they are stupid expensive though. I ended up making use of both secret methods, crafting a hefty 6,000 cursed arrows. Then for my accessories, I bought the counter scarf from the Clothier, took down the mimic for a philosopher's stone, and crafted that into the charm of myths. Of course, all the while, I was still idly scrolling through recipe browser, looking for any threads of hope. Literally all the viable weapons and armor sets we could possibly get are locked behind at least a single mech. Near enough, everything crafted from Mithril is green, and on the contrary, Adamantite red. And there's a myriad of accessories we can get post-mech too, including wings. Yes, literal wings. Now, I finally arrived at the underworld, and after throwing down a few insta-bridges, I summoned in the wall. I knew that this was still going to be a formidable challenge, and to say I didn't have it in me today would be an understatement. We didn't even get the wall halfway down before succumbing to the skill issue at hand. But just to make sure though, I placed 3 more bridges above the previous ones and tried again, this time faring much better, but still not quite good enough. I figured there was really nothing to do here other than keep trying, although in the last attempt I didn't have a regen potion, so I made sure to bring one this time. And lo and behold, we just about claim our victory. Of course, with no time to waste, I head straight to the underground corruption in search of clingers, the enemy that drops our new weapon. I didn't mention this prior, but while we were hunting for mimics earlier, I bought a Format C yo-yo from the skeleton merchant. An unassuming and impractical weapon at first, until I realized that right here, right now, would be the perfect time for yo-yo glitch, boy. We were taking hits like a punching bag, but man, we were dishing out some incredible damage, and after a couple minutes and deaths, our hopes and dreams would finally manifest into something tangible, something we can hold in the very palm of our hand. Okay, yeah, we got the weapon. Well, farming time over, let's test it out. And I'll tell you what, I wasn't monumentally disappointed with the dagger's performance on the destroyer, but with the onslaught of probes trying to do unspeakable things to us, and our obviously tragic lack of mobility, I think beating the destroyer is off the table, for now. Just to be sure though, I tried again with a Rod of Discord bought from the wizard, but yeah. Nope. In my head, I already knew that Prime would be straight up impossible, the twins would be just as painfully difficult as the destroyer, and both Cryogen, the Aquatic Scourge, and Tier 2 Acid Rain will net us nothing in return. Of course, progression skips were an option, but yeah man, I don't know about doing Golem, Ravager, or any other skips the way we are right now. So, following process of elimination, I gathered that facing Plantera of all bosses would be the next best option for us right now. Yeah, anyways, moving on, I of course throw down a Reg W quick platform arena and attempt Plantera, which to my surprise, even with our distinct lack of prep, we do get pretty far into. Eventually though, she began shooting her purple spiky balls which would slowly but surely overwhelm me. But getting nearly a quarter of the way into the fight on the first attempt is nothing to scoff at. So naturally, I expand the arena some more and try once again, this time reaching my way even further into the battle and putting up a good fight myself. Until I got comboed by a seed and a spore cloud, sending me back to the title screen. The next real life day, I decided it's upgrade time. I've been neglecting all these small incremental upgrades for a while, so I think it's about time we get to it. First off, I farmed some giant worms for the whoopee cushion, with which I make the fart in a bottle and upgrade all the way into the green horseshoe balloon, giving us a double jump and entirely negating full damage. Next on the agenda was the frog leg, which I was originally gonna fish for, using a fiberglass pole along with some grasshoppers and stink bugs, but eventually chat reminded me I could just buy the frog leg from the Tinkerer NPC, which in hindsight is kind of cheating, but still the fishing route is entirely possible if you want to go that way. For the final touches, I farmed some moolah from the Brain of Cthulhu, reforge most of my accessories to warding, and then teleport over to the jungle to deploy my secret arena tech. Some of you may remember this from my Double Bosses series, you probably don't, but anyways, allow me to introduce you to the Plantera Bubble Block Arena. Since we have Terrace Box, we can create rows of bubble blocks and pour water on top to create what are essentially just slightly awkward platforms. We can't grapple onto them, sadly, but enemies can't walk on them either. And more importantly, Plantera's balls won't stick to them, falling right down to the bottom of our arena and exploding out of harm's way. Perfect. So after nearly 30 minutes of arena building, holy shit, we finally faced Plantera once again. Not being able to grapple onto platforms, which is as fundamental as eating, sleeping and breathing for me, makes movement slightly awkward for me, but our green fart balloon is an immense boost to our vertical mobility, more than making up for our lack of precision. But once again, like tradition now, 2 bad hits later and... Okay, I'm not focusing enough. Watch me. Failure after failure after failure. This boss was seriously testing Reg W's limits, but not once did he ever think to himself that this is impossible, for he knows that everything is impossible until it has been achieved. No matter how gut-wrenchingly agonizing each failure was, Reg understood that these were not failures, so to speak, but simply a step in the right direction, the price of chasing your ambitions. You see, as long as you have the opportunity to repeat, to learn from your mistakes and retry with newfound knowledge and experience, then you have never truly failed, as the only true failure is to give up, or die trying. You may ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why should I be doing this? Is this really what I want to do? Do I really want to do this anymore? Is this really worth it? Questions that repeat to near insanity in the mind of any ambitious soul. But the one and only way to materialize your dreams and ultimately fulfill the goal you set out to achieve is to keep moving forward. And the only question involved should be whether your resolve is strong enough to do so. Okay, so funny story, it was around like 10 PM on the night of Boxing Day, and after beating Plantera, I was like, hell yeah man, I'ma close Terraria, make a cup of tea, read some Tokyo Ghoul, maybe watch some anime, woo! But wait, okay, first, real talk, I've got to check the footage, make sure everything's... You know, I thought this victory seemed too good to be true. The first time I beat Plantera, it only took a few attempts. But this time around, for whatever reason, I spent nearly 3 hours going straight ham on this boss. Nearly 10 minutes spent on each single attempt, with some of them being just thousands of HP away from victory. You know the feeling when you get so stupidly close to beating a boss, but choke at the last 5 seconds, and you just feel that snap inside of you. And within that moment, visualize yourself punching a hole through your keyboard, snapping your headphones in half, and further your monitor or your chair. It takes a darn hell of a lot of mental fortitude not to give into petty wrath and act upon your violent tendencies in those kind of situations. To not turn your monitor into Rengoku. Anyways, moving on. Immediately after defeating Plantera, I replaced the crown jewel of the Spore Sack and slashed my way over to the Shimmer with the ever so awesome Sealer, the best, literal best possible weapon Plantera could have gave us. Along the way, I do take down a couple perennial slimes, and upon arriving at the Shimmer, I transmute the ore from them down into enough mithril for an anvil, followed by enough adamantite for a forge. Saving a bit of perennial ore, I return by death back home and craft the hard mode anvil and forge, allowing me to smelt the remaining perennial ore into bars to finally make the sole item I took down Plantera for, the Bestial Pickaxe. With this singular item, we have now officially broke progression and can now begin going backwards, firstly mining up a lifetime supply of perennial ore and crafting the viral sprout summon. There were of course some other things I could make with perennial bars, but none in particular stood out to me, so I moved on to the jungle to mine chlorophyte. Now while perennial ore did help us skip an entire tier of progression, chlorophyte was what I was really after, as with it I could make the chlorophyte melee armor, being an enormous upgrade compared to our long worn out crimson armor and synergizing well with our current melee build. Continuing this trend of going backwards, I decided I'd re-challenge the mechs of our new gear, beginning with the Destroyer. Compared to the Cursed Dagger, the Seedler was just wiping the floor with this boss, probes and all, which is great news if you remember the absolute onslaught of probes from earlier. I still died, somehow, because I'm stupid, but I came back for the second attempt and destroyed the Destroyer in no time. Another thing that happened in seemingly no time, though, was the Crimson spreading all the way to my base, so I went on a side quest to move everyone out of harm's way, luckily being able to get the Steampunker to move in since we just took down our first mech. In the meanwhile, I summoned the Twins, who, albeit still being a close fight, struggling with movement especially on the final phase, I still take out first try, leaving us with only one mech remaining. The deadliest of them all. Thanks, Fabsol. Death Mode Skeletron Prime. The first phase, as always, was a complete breeze, you'd think, but my Seedler didn't actually have enough range to hit the laser in the cannon. Fortunately though, I'd crafted a Chlorophyte Claymore earlier on, which, while awkward to use, did a perfectly good job of getting rid of those final two hands. Oh yeah, I got rid of the Crimson now too. With a strategy in place for Prime's first phase, we can move on to the second, and by far most challenging phase. I'm sure if you're a Death Mode player, you see these skulls in your nightmares. Now, while they are intimidating, there is a sort of method I came up with over the years to dodge them kind of seamlessly, which I like to call go up and down and dash a couple times. Yep, that's the trick, the secret sauce. I thought this would be a lot harder with no wings, but in fact, I think it's even easier now. Of course, we still have to consider the laser circle spam after the skull spam, so I make sure to move far enough away to dodge the lasers while simultaneously weaving through each of the homing skulls, and yeah, this is harder than it looks. But that doesn't mean it's objectively hard though. I slip and slide through Prime's attacks like melted butter until I get spread on some toast and turn into a bum sandwich. What if I told you that all of Skeletron Prime's previous attacks are nothing compared to the shitstorm he pulls on you when he gets low on health? I noticed that going up after the rockets will just make Skeletron kiss me, so I try going underneath him instead, which works slightly better, but the rockets still lock onto me so hard I'm almost required to use the Rod of Discord just to dodge them. Even with all this though, I ball. I just about managed to take out Prime while being a single hit away from my imminent death, wrapping up all three of the mechs. There's not really anything I can craft of their souls, so I move on to the hard mode dungeon to get some ectoplasm. You might be confused as to why I'm here, of all places, but this will all make sense in a moment. I just need 5 ectoplasm. Now, it's Christmas, baby! Tell me, what colors do you traditionally see on Christmas decorations? Yes, red and green. Outstanding. And you wanna know what the enemies from the Frost Moon drop? Green gear, red gear, and white gear too, but I'm racing. From the Frost Moon, we can get treasures such as the Christmas tree sword and chain gun, although I am running a melee build, so it's not really as useful. But what I'm really after are the festive wings dropped by Everscreams. Our first unmistakably green pair of wings. So after finishing the first Frost Moon at wave 13, I decided we need to bite the bullet and craft a Terrorblade. So I spam the Cosmolite until a solar eclipse happens, wait an abnormally long time for a Mothron to spawn, acquire a broken hero sword, gather all the ingredients for the Terrorblade as I hadn't actually made the Knight's Edge yet or the Excalibur either, then ultimately craft this green beauty. Anyways, where were we? Oh yeah, we're farming for the festive wings. Would you believe me if I said they took like 6 Frost Moons to get? Well, I still don't believe it either. Either way, we finally have our first pair of wings after beating Plantera, and movement has never felt better or faster. With all of these major upgrades compounding on top of each other, the only next reasonable step now would be to take on another boss. Although I won't get anything valuable from them, aside from one ranged weapon, Leviathan and Anahita seem like the perfect targets to test out my shiny new gear on, and with the Siren Lure spawning promptly as I arrive at the ocean, I dive into this fight all balls, no brain style. Starting off, of course, the fight is easy, my Terrorblade getting in some respectable damage despite our poor loadout. Aside from flying up and down to dodge the meteors, I have to watch out for the minions that get summoned too. But once again, the Terrorblade completely nullifies any danger they might possess. So after a light first phase, Anahita comes out of hiding, and this is where the fight does get a bit more complicated. Her projectiles are easy to predict and avoid at first, but the more her health drops, the more chaotic her movements become, and the more projectiles she summons. Albeit very close, the power of the Terrorblade proves too great for her to handle, and we take out Anahita, leaving us with just the big girl remaining. Although, some poor movement quickly ends my run. Well, we're fully upgraded at this point, so all there is to do is try once more. Again, I get Anahita to only a shred of health remaining, but get caught in a tight spot and subsequently get wombo comboed. Okay, 3rd time's the charm, or whatever they say. This time around, I heavily focus on Anahita's attack cycles, performing all the correct movements to evade them while simultaneously watching out for Leviathan's occasional projectile. Anahita falls in no time, as she should, and this time I make sure to completely obliterate the Leviathan. Her chain dashes would have been absolutely lethal had we not gotten the festive wings earlier, but with our almost on-tier mobility, I charge up adrenaline and defeat the Leviathan. Man, it really feels like we've entered the golden age of this playthrough. Well, anyways, I open the treasure bag and get everything but the weapon I want. I open 4 more treasure bags and finally get my hands on the Leviathan. I don't really need this weapon considering it's ranged, but it is very reliable, and I love this weapon, so I thought it'd be nice to have. In any normal playthrough, you'd typically fight Astrum Aureus next, but of course considering his color scheme, he drops nothing of value for us, and since he's not required for progression, we're headed for Golem. I hoik into the temple, clear the traps, and summon the dude in, hoping for the best. Starting off, the first phase is relatively simple. The bouncing fireballs are difficult to dodge and predict, but our Terrorblade still deals some solid, consistent damage to Golem. On to the second phase now, where Golem can jump much higher, no longer being weighed down by his fists. He fires a lot more fireballs and lasers now, ramping up the intensity, but as long as we stay diligent and keep chipping away at his health, we should be fine. Update, Golem is on f***ing crack. His head is flying above us now, and we're dead. Man, I forgot how insane Golem is on death mode. I try once again, this time using the Christmas tree sword, which I found to be slightly more effective than the Terrorblade, but failing to even reach his final phase. Okay, get your tomatoes and dislikes ready, cause I'm about to teach you some cheese. Behold the one-way hoik. Golem's fireballs will enter, but never escape, making the fight moderately easier, more so in the chaos right before the final phase. Look man, I know this is scummy, but I think I've suffered enough on this channel. I have a life to live, a family, And as always, you can prove me wrong and try this challenge yourself. Okay, now back to the fight. With the cheese in place, we make it to the final phase much more smoothly, but the remainder of this fight isn't going to be completely free. As Golem's HP drops, his dismembered head begins firing explosions that clutter up the arena, forcing us to make awkward movements to dodge them, all the while evading the lasers and the less dangerous now fireballs. In some parts of this fight, I get nail-bitingly close to dying, but manage to claw my way back and focus just enough to charge up adrenaline, quickly bringing an end to the fight. Yeah, somewhat uneventful, but still a fun fight nonetheless, so let's move on to the next phase of progression. While I mine some scoria ore in the background, using the Sea King's buff to breathe underwater, I'll lay out our current options on the table. Ravager, of course, doesn't drop anything for us, so there's no need to fight him. At least not until after Providence. Likewise with the Empress of Light, but the Plaguebringer Goliath and Duke Fishron, however, do contain some useful drops. Of course, the Lunatic Cultist is non-negotiable, so we'll be fighting him no matter what we do, but we have some very solid pathways open to us right now. There was nothing red or green in the recipes for Scoria bars, except for one semi-decent weapon. The Fallen Paladin's Hammer, requiring a Paladin's Hammer from the dungeon, Opponent's Hammer, Ashes of Calamity, requiring me to take down Cow Clone, which was a one-sided fight to say the least. And finally some Scoria bars in order to wield this thing. Aside from that, there were no other major upgrades obtainable without taking down a boss, so I shimmied my way over to the dungeon to take on the Lunatic Cultist. Yeah, I don't know why I did that. I promptly got wiped like a bogey on John's laptop screen, but not before progressing a solid way into the fight. This is possible. I'm not sure why my stupid ass decided to fight the cultist, considering nothing from the lunar events is usable. Although I didn't know this at the time, and challenging Fishron or the Plaguebringer first would have been beneficial. But either way, through sheer balls and lack of brain, I put up a valiant effort until the very end. For both of us. Yeah man, I completely Brexit tackled this guy into next week. Now, cue me looking through all the recipes and realizing there was no point doing what I just did. Although Fishron absolutely would have been easier, I wanted to try Plaguebringer first to see what I was dealing with. So I farmed some Plague Cell canisters to craft the Abomination, and began my first attempt using my Plantera Arena. Those of you who play Death Mode will know how notoriously difficult this boss is, especially its minions, and this run was no exception. The Terrorblade though is one of the most efficient weapons against this boss, so having it is a godsend. And despite not having a Ram Dash, the Counter Scarf combined with some decent movement proved well enough to evade the Plaguebringer's dashing, and even her diagonal dashes later on into the fight. If I were to tell you the absolute truth, this fight had a hopeful outlook for us. But the light at the end of the tunnel was still very far away, and the next few attempts would further prove that fact. Well, our only other option here is Fishron, so I bought some truffle worms from the Sea King and made a dash to the ocean. And who even needs an arena? The Fallen Paladin's Hammer, despite being awkward to aim, dealt some pretty phenomenal single target damage to the fish. And to my surprise, pierced through all of the exploding bubbles too, allowing us to charge adrenaline and get to the second phase almost unscathed. Now, the lack of speed on our wings and dash was beginning to show here, but of course as long as you have good movement, then that's hardly an issue. Our lack of arena prep was definitely beginning to show though, as these Sharknadoes would completely overwhelm us later on into the fight, with Duke entering his third phase being the cherry on top of our downfall. One patented Reg W quick platform arena later though, and we make it back to the third phase in a jiffy. I'm not gonna lie and say I wasn't horrified going into this though with our lack of ram dash. As soon as I saw that background shift to a deep blue, I held my breath and anticipated my end. Okay, wait, why are we cracked at the game? Yeah, you do not need a ram dash for Duke's final phase. Once again, good movement proves to be invaluable for us, as the clouds disperse and the moon's hopeful light shines upon us once more, signaling our triumph over yet another boss. Now, what was it Duke Fishron dropped for us, you might ask? Well, What if I told you that we can not only obtain a new melee weapon, but the best pre-Moonlord wings on top of that? Cry about whether these are green or not in the comments, I'll appreciate the interaction either way. Keeping this momentum going, I fought Queen Bee for the honeycomb accessory in order to craft the alchemical flask, swapping it out for my spore sack, as it weakens the plague debuff that the Plaguebringer obviously inflicts upon me. I begin the battle with the bee, hoping for a slightly better outcome this time. And to be humbly honest, we do get slightly further, but still not even halfway. This attempt though, something was different. I made it all the way to the second phase, still on full health, and breezed through the first wave of plague nukes like nothing, unleashing adrenaline onto the boss and dodging its every move as if it was all natural to me. It was as if a heavenly restriction was bestowed upon me. All balls, no brain. Everything was falling into place. My real life adrenaline bar burnt out, and we were back to square one. But oh man, seeing how low that health bar was, this is possible. We'll need just about every advantage we can get though, so I once again went Blood Moon farming for some potions, and returned to the battlefield once more. This time around, completely getting my shit rocked 5 times in a row, with buffs. Only after multiple arse whoopings did I realize I had my spore sack equipped over my counter scarf. But even after making that supposedly good adjustment, my skill for the day had ran dry, not even getting close to the peak of the mountain we'd planted our flag on earlier. Through all of those attempts, there was but one thought on my mind. Yeah, we can probably beat Moonlord. And with Plaguebringer kicking my tushy, and Astrum Deus dropping nothing worthwhile, the thought of moving directly onto Moonlord was becoming more enticing by the second. So what did I do? Yeah, I caved and dived straight into the pillars, which were surprisingly hard to take down, all things considered, and not being able to use the majority of pylons made each death every bit more punishing. But with enough time, the Nebula pillar fell, then Vortex, then eventually Stardust. And I forgot to record the solar one because I'm a stupid With all 4 pillars destroyed and no upgrades obtained from them whatsoever, I charge bravely, all balls, no brain style, into the Moonlord fight of all time. As funny as it is, this challenge has blessed us with the perfect melee loadout for Moonlord. Flare-on, Fish-run wings, shig, even a decent enough armor set. All we're missing are some good damage accessories. So as the final climactic battle of this episode plays out, I want to give a hefty thank you to the channel members. You know who you are. And everyone else who helps make these videos possible. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much for watching all the way. If you want to see what kind of stupid shenanigans we get up to post Moonlord, then it would be in your best interest to subscribe. You get notified when I upload, and I get to see a cool number go up. Don't forget to make a cup of tea. See ya.